Hello, it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with another channeled message. This is a specific message. It might resonate with you, it might not. Okay, so if this is your message, I feel like you could be having a bit of a healing crisis, a bit of a tower moment here, but this has something to do with your perception. And I think you feel a little bit lost at sea when it comes to all the different voices and all the different opinions here around you. As, like you're looking for a North Star in order to navigate. And I think this may come off of the back of realizing that you were duped, like entirely, when it comes to a certain person or their agenda, or you thought something here major. You thought something was one way, and I think you really got taken for a ride, is what I'm hearing. Like maybe you really stuck the landing on something, or you really backed something wholeheartedly, only to have all of that kind of crumble down around you and to realize that wasn't at all what you thought that it was. So I think you might be in a bit of a despair and you feel very jarred, very like shaken by this. And no doubt this is a very destructive, like, shaken kind of experience, but actually this is a part of your awakening process, and this is a very good thing. And I just want to kind of try to pin this experience in a broader context. And I actually think that's what this experience for you is actually all about. I think you're kind of walking around and you're realizing that life is kind of screaming at you, not in an unpleasant way, but things and people, they're expressing so much at any given time than you even realize. And you're starting to realize that, I think, something here about like knowledge. If you understand the systems and if you're able to put things in context, that can actually help you build a map. And that's what I'm hearing. You're going through an enlightenment experience, and I'm hearing map it. Okay. And I think you're moving from a state of consciousness where you are focused on individual dots, like individual points, individual people. And it was kind of, they were just floating there. You didn't really see them as attached to any other things, even their own psyche. Like you didn't even see the iceberg of like a human being's own psyche in some way. I'm not saying like, oh, you're a total idiot and like you don't know that like, that goes on for people. I'm saying like you just didn't see something about that very clearly, but now your eyes are opened to the fact that there is another layer here, or multiple other layers. And maybe you feel overwhelmed, but I think you mostly feel curious, and you kind of are sitting there, and you might be channeling. I remember when somebody told me this on a live stream, I kept saying like, oh, I'm just like so nervous and I'm so anxious. And she said, nervousness and anxiety are like a part of the same system as excitement. So try to reframe that you're excited. And I actually think that even though you're having to cope with something here, because I think there was a certain amount of destruction that you were a part of, and it feels like you bought into something blindly, but then when you take another look, knowing what you know now, broadening your perspective or deepening your perspective, you're realizing that you were wrong about it, and that the writing was on the wall really all along. And I'm hearing that Jesus quote, like, first remove the log from your own eye. And I do feel like that is what it is that you are doing. And I feel like there's a certain amount of excitement that you can have here for this journey. I do feel like you're grieving. I do feel like you maybe feel bad here about something, but this is the amends process, is what I'm hearing. This is the way that you make amends. And I'm hearing the word amendment. I think some of you are amending your own personal Bill of Rights. You are amending your own personal constitution, the way in which you are willing to engage with the world and engage with people. And I just heard ceasefire, and I also like rules of engagement, like your rules of engagement, you're amending this. Again, this is such a positive thing to come out of this experience, and you are being celebrated. Now, the other thing that I'm hearing is the Kobayashi Maru. And I mention this a lot because personally, my personal belief, and I would never ask you to just believe me blindly, you're definitely in your own curious experience, and remember that life is an alchemy, and God wants a relationship with you, and God is life. God is what's happening and unfolding all around us. So anything that you explore with an open, curious heart, with fairness, is you, I feel personally, building your relationship with God and getting to know God. And it's about relationship. It's about that alchemical process. It's not just about who do I believe, what's my stance on this, who do I side with. That's the level of consciousness that you are outgrowing, right? So fully explore this yourself. But for me, where I'm kind of sitting with it now, and I do reserve the right to change my opinion as I continue to learn and grow, but I always kind of think to myself that life is like the Kobayashi Maru. And if you don't know what the Kobayashi Maru is, it is the captain's test in Star Trek that all the people who are going to be captains, they have to kind of take this like final capping, like final exam test. And the purpose of the Kobayashi Maru is that there is no winning. There's no such thing as winning the Kobayashi Maru, because that's not the point. right? There's no such thing as winning life. That's not the point. The point of it is to put you through an experience, is to have an experience, right? And to confront certain things. And in the Kobayashi Maru, it's to confront a very trying situation, to confront sacrifice, and to confront fear. Because ultimately, it puts them in a situation that they know they can't get out of. So as a captain, they have to deliver orders, knowing that certain things need to get done and that people will die, knowing that they are going to die. And when they're put into that circumstance, how will they respond? So this test is it's supposed to be as close to life, as they can get them. So they've already experienced that before when they're actually in that situation. And I'm hearing that phrase, we always fall back on either instinct or training. And our instinct is meant to keep us safe, but our instinct doesn't always take the full context, the full picture into effect, because it's dealing with something very specific in that moment. So training can really help with that. And I do feel like some of you, maybe you're undergoing some kind of spiritual training. I just heard Gnosticism. Some kind of Gnostic, or again, it's like peeling back the layers of the onion. This is some kind of spiritual training. Some of you are called to look further into a certain field or a certain system. This could be even like psychology, figuring out how people work in order to, again, amend your own rules of engagement. And I just feel like this, I think that you're updating, you need a new North Star. And I think for now that Kobayashi Maru thing is meant to be your North Star. Like, try to map the Kobayashi Maru. It doesn't become about winning. That's what it is. It's like you are outgrowing this consciousness of winning, making the right choice. Whether that's like, I did the right thing here and it's this specific thing, I sided with the right person. Instead, this more becomes about understanding the system and understanding the different points that you have within the system. And what that means in terms of life is understanding certain systems, and every system has a limit, right? There's certain things that you can't bring to a court of law because it's just outside of what it's meant to do. There's certain things that are honestly outside the bounds of science for now because it's just beyond the limit of what it can do. So it's about understanding. This is about relationship, getting to know the field of science, getting to know the field of law, getting to know the field of psychology. What questions can it answer? How is it supposed to answer those questions? Because finding the right answer, quote unquote, right answer, or the best answer in any given period of time, right? Just doing the best that you can. You'll find that your focus, instead of being on whatever you're supposed to choose or not choose, it should be on the system. It should be on the process. If your process is good, if your process is clear, and I'm hearing that scientific, you replicate something, right? If you can replicate something, you have a good process. You amend your process. Okay, so the process that you take something through before you make a decision, you know why you go through each stage of that process because you know what information you need to receive in order to make up your decision. And you'll find that on any given issue or on a controversial person, the people that are very intelligent, they tend to speak with nuance. They don't tend to speak in absolutes because absolutes are a thing, but it's a rare thing. When you look at the bell curve, absolutes are called outliers. They're very rare. They do exist, but they are very rare. Instead, I think this is what you're going for. You are meant to be able to speak eloquently on when this energy should be applied and when it shouldn't be applied because it no longer suits. Does that make sense? So it's like, well, under these conditions, we should do this. And under these conditions, we shouldn't do this. Instead of saying like, I'm absolutely pro this and I'm absolutely anti this, and I'm 100% aligned with this person and I'm 0% aligned with this person. I feel like that's the level of consciousness either that you've been around and influenced by. And that's the other thing. So I think some of you feel overwhelmed by opinions and by like people's takes on things. And those people should become, again, coordinates in your Kobayashi Maru. Things that you can learn to navigate from. And I'm literally picturing like a map of the constellations. Like you know what this star is. That star being a person. You know what this star is. Meaning, you know who that person is more or less. Like you try to figure it out, the people that are close to you. You can kind of predict, if you're paying attention, you can kind of predict like the kind of decisions that people are gonna, not with absolute certainty, but you can kind of tell where they're gonna lean because you know their values, you know what's important to them. So take their opinions instead of like they think that you should absolutely do this. Instead, take the more nuanced view. Okay, well this person, they tend to value this and that, like this is their priority in the situation. So of course they're going to tell me to do this or decide with this because this person, that's what's most important to them. This other person, well, I feel like their opinion, I can see how their opinion fits into the broader context of them. And so they think that I should do this. Well, what's my guiding light? What's my priority in this situation? And then you can do much more with those people's perspectives, observations, opinions, concerns, because you understand where it's coming from and you understand what they're trying to preserve, what's most important to them. And honestly, maybe you can find a middle way. Maybe, and that's another thing that I want to bring up here too, is that the middle way is not staunch neutrality. Because I think most people don't like staunch neutrality. Because, and I do think there's some people here in your life that do have like advocate for that perspective. Some of those people will be professionals, and in their professional capacity, they're meant to operate that way, to kind of say, well, we have to hear both sides, like your therapist. Well, we need to hear both sides, but really as a person, your therapist is going to have an opinion, because they're a person, but they're operating as a professional. They're operating as a steward for a certain process that they have to be neutral in order for it to work for you. Does that make sense? See how we're putting things like in greater context. So if you think your therapist's personal opinion and they didn't tell you, that your therapist is operating in a professional capacity. And they know how to work the system that they were trained in order to help you make up your own mind. That's their goal in the situation, right? For some, that might have been a specific message, is that they're loyal to like what they're supposed to be doing, but they keep that separate from their own personal life, and they're supposed to. They're meant to. So some people you have act like that they do have some kind of profession, or they do have some kind of elevated knowledge or something where they are actually called upon to play a steward for a certain process, and you'll notice that they're loyal to that, right? And they can explain how the process goes. But yeah, so see what I'm talking about though? This is all about like mapping who is who and what is what, putting them in context so that you can make the most of their observations, and you're not smacking them in the face, and you're not, even if you disagree with them, you're not saying, well, you are absolutely wrong, and you're saying, okay, I understand like where all these people are kind of coming from, and it helps you better to kind of hear the truth beneath the truth, in order to kind of not be so caught off guard by what it is that you're seeing. I think this is the process. This is the experience. And some of you, I think, are called to go through like a debriefing process here as well. Now, try not to beat yourself up here too. I want to say this last thing, and then I'm going to wrap this up. My husband was talking about, he's a huge nerd, and he was talking about the Lord of the Rings, and I mean that in like the best way, by the way. And we were talking about Gollum, and he was like, what I was thinking, because Gandalf is like the wizard, right? And he's very talented and he's very wise, but Gandalf is from a race of like demigods. They're like angelic beings, but they don't remember that they're angelic beings. They're like, the place that they're from is like but a whisper in their mind. Like they don't really remember, but they incarnate here in Earth in order to assist. They're not supposed to like engage too directly, but they're meant to bring hope and knowledge and like guidance. But they live like thousands of years, because it takes them thousands of years to like get up and running here in this space, because they have to get themselves back online, which is why you have like Gandalf the Grey, and then you have like Solomon the White, because they're like more like knowledgeable or whatever, right? But when Gandalf was back in his place where he came from, the angelic realm, he learned from this one angel that was like a master in pity. And I think what they mean by pity is like compassion. She was a master at like really looking at the context of people in order to take pity on them, like in order to have compassion for everything that it is that they are grappling with. So I feel like you're being encouraged to have that perspective with yourself, but also like maybe other people here as well, like to have a certain amount of compassion. That's very different than saying, well, they can just get off the hook and like they're never held accountable, but just to put them like overall in context. But that's why Gandalf takes so much and like so readily to Bilbo Baggins, because Bilbo had multiple opportunities to end Gollum, but didn't. He took pity on him. He could see kind of like the pitifulness like of that creature that was just addicted to the ring, the ring of power or whatever, and he didn't. And that passed through his line down to his grandson Frodo, who also took pity on Gollum. And because they took pity on Gollum, the story of the Lord of the Rings, where Gollum actually does lead them to Mordor, even though he was kind of a betrayer the whole time and he was in full grips of his addiction to that ring of power, he still was able to lead them to Mordor, where they actually could destroy the ring. The events of the Lords of the Ring could not have unfolded if they had not taken that pity and that compassion onto Gollum. And it also shows that, like, here, encased in flesh, we really do not understand why things are unfolding the way that they are. We can't fully hold the perspective of the gods, is what I'm hearing, because we're not meant to, because that's not the purpose of the human experience. The purpose of the human experience is to have an experience with our limited perception. And what Ramana Maharshi, my teacher, says, and honestly many sages, many Eastern teachers will bring this up at some point, all that exists is the now. All that exists is the moment that's in front of you. When yesterday happened, you experienced it as now, as what was going on right in front of you. Tomorrow, when tomorrow comes, it will come as today. It will come as right now. You never actually experience a tomorrow. You only ever experience now. And that, my friend, is the Kobayashi Maru. That is the experience that you have been put in. You're not meant to have an all-knowing, godlike perspective on everything and never make a single mistake. When you make a mistake, then what do you do with it in the now? Do you use it? Do you compost it down? Can you pull nutrient from that? Can you alchemize yourself from that? And can you see that process going on in other people? Again, not that you don't live your own full human experience. This is what I'm trying to get at when I say, like a therapist, you know, it's like, okay, well, they're taught, yes, I mean, we have to look at this and we have to look at that. But honestly, like, they also have to live their own human experience. And I'm just saying that because it confused me a lot. I have a degree in psychology. When I was learning all this stuff, I was like, okay, well, I guess this is like the right way to think. But there would be certain things where I'm like, I understand that we have to like hold space for, you know, like if you're doing therapy with like someone who ended like somebody, but like they're wrong. Like the person part of me can say that it's wrong, and that's my own healthy like judgment. It's going to keep me safe and it's going to help me as a person living my own personal life know who I want to associate with on a personal level. You know what I'm saying? And like, but if I'm doing therapy with someone, which I'm not a therapist, but I was headed down that track before, and you know, I was like, okay, like I was really trying to figure out if that's something I could do, you know, actually hold the container for that experience to unfold. I would have had to been a neutral party, and I would have had to give over like my own personhood for an hour session to kind of like help somebody move through something that maybe I find actually difficult to stomach, you know? So again, it's whatever happens, how do you use it? How do you relate to it? Because life is about relating. Life is about an experience. And when you know better, like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. And that's the part of being human that can be so great, right? And that's like how we navigate our time here. Yes, there's absolute right answers and there's absolute wrong answers. And that tends to have to do with like, this functions this way and it does not function this way. So if you're trying to make it function this way and that's not what it's meant for, that is an absolute wrong way to engage. Morality, right? There are some things where it's like, you just don't treat people this way, or you do treat people this way. But those are slim things on the outliers. And once you get those down, the rest, you can really, there's a lot of room for expression and play and engagement with life, with God. Dance with her, move with her, groove with her. And I feel like this is the exciting new journey that you are embarking on, coming from this entirely new experience. And I do think that all these things that we've talked about here, having pity, compassion for self and others, again, not that you do not take the steps to hold someone accountable if they have done wrong, or take the steps to correct your errors if you have done wrong. You absolutely do, but you can still hold that compassionate, it's yes and energy. Your girl's a Gemini. Gemini energy is yes and. Yes, you can have compassion, and also we can act to right our wrongs and to hold people accountable. You know, and to make sure, this is again the process of making amends, to make sure that this behavior does not occur in your remit in the future. That is a true apology, rather than just saying words. This is a true apology. This is, you're on the path to forgiveness, is what I'm hearing. And I think some of you have to forgive yourself for being fully human, but when you know better, you do better. And I think some of you, there's been some kind of crashing realization that now you know better. I can see clearly now, the rain has gone. You can see clearly now. So it's important that you just keep moving in that direction of growth and actually pop yourself up onto this new level of consciousness. This is a very, very good sign. But I think it's showing up as a crisis of faith, as a crisis of, oh shit, I've done something really like morally wrong, and maybe you have, okay? And we all have. He who is without sin cast the first stone, right? With Jesus. That's not to say that the people you've wronged should not absolutely hold you accountable. And that's a part, it's a part of the dance, right? It's a part of the dance. Okay, so that's what I have. If that resonates with you, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.